Welcome to the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show with celebrity nutrition expert, fitness Hall of Famer, and four-time New York Times bestselling author, JJ Virgin. JJ is a warrior mom whose knowledge and expertise have helped change hundreds of thousands of lives with over 3.5 million podcast downloads and appearances on Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, The Today Show, Rachel Ray, Larry King Live.
Whoa. This show is about you, not about me. I want to help you find practical, real-world ways to dial in your health and mindset so you can finally lose that weight and feel strong and energized. Stop settling for less than your personal best. It's time to find out how to look and feel better than ever. And I'll be right here with you the whole way. Hey, it's JJ. Welcome to the podcast. I have got a treat for you today. It's a delicious one. I've got my pal Magdalena Wszelaki, and I'll give you extra bonus points and a gift if you can figure out how to spell her name. I've known Magdalena now for a couple years. She has a super cool niche. She is the author of the book Cooking for Hormone Balance, and she has a company, Hormones Balance, and it is a nutrition coaching practice where she helps women rebalance their hormones with food and herbs. And what's super cool is this all came, she'll tell you her story of how this came to be, but she makes the most delicious stuff, but it all has this therapeutic effect. So if you're dealing with any thyroid issues, adrenal issues, hormonal issues, anything going on with blood sugar, insulin, any liver stuff, anything going on with estrogen dominance, you're probably like, yes, and yes. You know, maybe you got hot flashes or you're cold or you're constipated. Hey, you are going to want to listen to this podcast because she's going to show you how to use foods that you would typically be eating, how to incorporate those in to really change the way that you look and feel. So it's really exciting stuff here. And she also has an amazing guide for you. We'll be talking about that, but you'll be able to grab that in all the show notes. We always have awesome show notes at jjvirgin.com/HB for hormone balance. All righty. Welcome to the show, Magdalena. I am so happy to have you with me.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here, JJ.
I'm a little jealous because for everyone listening, Magdalena is in Italy. But I'm assuming you're doing food research there, right?
I am, together with skiing and working on my book, but yes.
One of these days, that's what I want to do. Park myself in foreign countries and write great recipes for everybody. So we're going to dive in because you have such an interesting angle of cooking for hormone balance. And I'd love to know how you got into this.
Yeah, it's a very personal story. And I think a lot of people who are really, really passionate about what they do is always starts with our own story of some kind of a disaster. And, mine started off pretty much from the first diagnosis in my late 20s with Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune disease that causes hyperthyroid, so overactive thyroid function. And not having done anything about addressing the root causes of that autoimmune problem, I went 8 years later, I was then diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease. This is, and this was all based on feeling incredibly fatigued, having memory losses, started putting on weight, not being able to get up in the morning, from bad, terrible mood swings. And so, and the diagnosis was on one hand really scary, but also it was I felt so helpless because back then, this is in 2008, back then there was no resources like we have today about autoimmunity, about thyroid problems. I most certainly had estrogen dominance going on based on my symptoms, such as terrible PMSs. And most likely adrenal deficiency or adrenal exhaustion from having a very stressful job and being on the road a lot. I used to work in a regional job and travel a lot. And so that was, there was just a perfect storm that just finally created the diagnosis, that led to the diagnosis. Fast forward really 10 years later, as a 45-year-old woman, I feel better than I have ever felt in my life. I feel better than when I was 25 years old, when I used to walk around with a bloated belly and having cystic acne and horrendous headache.
And by the way, Magdalena, so here I am. I'm 25. Like, no, I'm not 25 now. I'm 54 now. But when I was 25, I had the same stuff going on, and I was a fitness instructor and studying nutrition. And I had cystic acne. And I remember someone actually asking me, I was walking through a department store in my workout clothes, right? And they asked me when I was due. I was like, right. So, I'm hearing all this, and, sadly enough, your story is pretty common, still common today. So it's super cool that you're able to turn it around with food, and not just that you were able to, but now that you've been able to do this with loads of people, because I know you have lots of success stories with using and it's not like it's weird food either. It's like totally yummy food that you've been doing here.
Absolutely. Stuff that you can get from a grocery store on a daily basis. But also I want to mention on this, you said the healing journey. I think it's also really important to always remember that my healing journey might be different from somebody else's healing journey, right? Because we all have different triggers. And so that was the reason why I went to nutrition school, is to really understand what triggers different people's diseases and conditions, especially when it comes to hormonal imbalances. And we all have a slightly different story, although many of them are, the underlying causes can be really nailed down to probably like the big 5 issues or so.
But that's such a great point, because I think everyone's looking for the answer. Mm-hmm. And the real deal is we have to be our own personal health detective, learn to recognize symptoms, connect the dots between, what we're eating and how we feel, right? To really be able to optimize the right diet for us, which is, I know you go through in your book, Cooking for Hormone Balance. So I love that you're doing that. Now, you kind of threw out a term I just want to jump in on, which is estrogen dominance. Just in case people don't know what it is, if you can just yak about that. And I also want to bring up a big myth out there about people who have this and some of the foods they should be avoiding, especially things like flaxseed. So you can just jump on both those.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite, this is actually my favorite hormonal imbalance, because it is so common amongst women, and yet so many of us do not realize that we actually have it. So estrogen dominance basically means that you have too much of not just estrogen, but the wrong kind of estrogens. And so what happens is kind of interesting in the body is that we produce different forms of estrogens. Some of them are protective and some of them are antagonistic. And when I say antagonistic, it means that they are the aggressive form of estrogens that are causing a lot of the symptoms, such as the PMSs and growth of fibroids and the growth of fibrocystic breasts. Even estrogen receptor positive breast cancers are also fueled by the wrong kind of estrogens. Infertility, also having first cycle miscarriages, having, swollen limbs around your cycles, right? Like you can't take off your ring, that moment, that is also, could also be estrogen dominance. But also things like, cellulite for that matter, or fat that accumulates around our hips and butts and we just can't shake it off no matter what we do. That can also be estrogen dominant. So you can see a lot of symptoms. And so the wrong kind of estrogen can be fueling it. But also what can happen is that estrogen gets broken down to what's called metabolites. And that happens in the liver and in the gut. And, depending on how healthy our digestion and how well functioning our liver is, that balance of those broken down metabolites can either be very protective and great for us, make us feel wonderful, or we can be producing too many of those bad metabolites, which again are causing the symptoms that I just mentioned. Is that a good explanation?
That's a great one. Yes. So what do we do with that, since it is so prevalent? And again, the one that I get asked a lot on Facebook is, okay, but I've got estrogen dominance. I can't put the flax seeds in my shake. That's
a really good, right. And it makes sense, right? Because flaxseed is one of the highest foods. It is actually the highest food when it comes to phytoestrogen. So it's a naturally occurring estrogen that resembles our own produced estrogen in a woman's body. So you think, well, if I'm estrogen dominant, why on earth would I be putting in more estrogen, right? Make total sense. The answer to this is that, like I mentioned before, actually we do need estrogens. And so the estrogen coming from flaxseed is the good type. But not only that, flaxseed skews the balance between the positive and the negative, or the antagonistic estrogen, the way they basically get broken down in the liver. flaxseed can make a huge impact in skewing the balance towards the positive side, so it's the safer side of estrogens. And that is hugely important, and not to mention also the fact that is a very high in flaxseed is high in omega-3s, which is anti-inflammatory. And, for most of us women, whether it's stress or because of what we eat or what we put on our skin, we tend to be very inflamed. So that omega-3 is always, very welcome. And lastly, why I love flaxseed is the fact that it's a wonderful source of both soluble and non-soluble fiber, which helps us to, evacuate, if you will, have a really good bowel movement.
I call that poops we can be proud of. That's what I call it. Don't have to tiptoe around that. We're all big poop fans over here.
I have to tell you, whenever I travel and I get constipated, because a lot of women get constipated when we travel, and I travel with flaxseed, and I recommend this for anyone, just having a couple of tablespoons of whole flaxseed in a glass of water before you go to bed, and it all bulks out during the night, and it evacuates things beautifully. And the evacuation, in the case of estrogen and a few other hormones as well, but estrogen even more so, is really important. And the reason is that, when you don't poop on a regular basis, I'm talking about once, twice a day, feeling completely emptied, having a nice, banana shaped kind of a poop, none of that, not running to the bathroom with diarrhea, or obviously not being constipated either. And so the constipation issue causes toxicity and of estrogen. So when when we metabolize estrogens, right, we evacuate them through our poop. That's basically the journey. They get created, they get into the bloodstream, they do the work, they get separated out in the liver, and then through the help of the bile, they get, pooped out. If you ain't not pooping them out, then they re-enter the body and then create all that havoc with all the symptoms that I talked about.
So big takeaway here. And I think that here's an easy visual for everybody is like, if you pooped and you didn't flush, what would happen? Right? I mean, if you pooped and didn't flush, it does not smell good in there, right? I mean, it's bad. And so you must get it out of your body. Got to get it out.
Flaxseed, bring on the flaxseed.
Bring on the flaxseed. So that's one of the great foods. Let's grab a couple of the other ones, because one of the things I love is it's not like these are bizarro things you can't find anywhere. Like, what are some of the other key foods that people should be looking for that are great superfoods to add into their
So let me talk about a food that I think a lot of your listeners might be interested in, given your demographic, is you work with more mature women. One of the issues that we have is in that demographic is breast health, right? So I'm talking here about fibrocystic breasts, estrogen receptor positive cancers, lumps on the breast, right? A lot of women, when we're going into our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, that is a real problem. So one of my absolute favorite foods that have been really well researched is, this little tiny, innocent looking broccoli sprout. And so if you go to the supermarket, you go to Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, or any health store that's near you, just look at where all the green stuff is, all the salads, right? And a lot of times you find that in little boxes, broccoli sprouts already sitting there ready to go. Now, what's so fantastic about them is that they contain a substance called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane has been, well documented to do two amazing things for us. It's an estrogen receptor blocker. So, the estrogens I was talking about, JJ, that the way we separate them, they can be antagonistic and they make the lumps grow and they cause fibrocystic breasts. They are the reason why women with estrogen receptor positive breast cancers have the malignant growth of the tissue. So the beautiful thing about sulforaphane is that it blocks those estrogen receptors. And so that way, not only does the breast cancer doesn't grow, but it's even studies showing that there is a shrinkage of the breast tumors. Just pretty incredible. So,
this said that, like, I've heard you say this before, and I immediately texted a friend who I have who's going through this, add them in, who has breast cancer. What would you do with, I actually don't think I've ever eaten these. What do you do with them?
It's a good question. So, I'll be honest. I mean, they do not taste the best. I mean, they taste a little bit like grass. Neither are they awful, right? But they're kind of like grass, right? And if you keep them growing, they're basically going to grow into a broccoli. So they do taste like a intense version of broccoli. What do you do with them? Your community is big on smoothies and shakes, right? Add that in to your shakes because it doesn't add any sugar. So that's a wonderful.
And you won't taste this bittery, funky thing.
Exactly. Another thing is just incorporating that into your salads on a regular basis,
Yeah, that seems like it. What about, could it get thrown into stir fries?
No. So we do not want to cook. Yeah, no. Sulforaphane gets very quickly diminished if we cook it. So we want to have it raw.
Okay, good to know.
I tell you, I mean, this is such a simple thing compared to, women who have breast cancers are put on an estrogen blocker called tamoxifen, which is a highly toxic drug, right? It's only prescribed to women for about 5 to 7 years because after that, it does so much damage to the liver that it's not advised to continue. And here you have these little broccoli sprouts that are just, so incredibly potent. And, JJ, the reason I'm so passionate about this is because there's so many women, I'm sure you've heard it in your community as well, who will say, breast cancer runs in my family, right? I'm so afraid I'm going to be next. And living with that fear is like one of the things that is such incredibly, diminishing energy. It's such a sucking energy that sucks the life out of you to be living with that. And, you have absolute and total control over that just by.
I also think, if anything, the stress and anxiety of living with that could create the problem.
Absolutely. And genetic, breast cancers are only about less than 10% of all breast cancers. And so most of them are due to estrogen, which is completely controllable. So that's my little favorite hair thing for you. Do that 1 cup.
There and it's a broccoli sprouts.
Broccoli sprouts. And if you want to have some fun with it, you can make your own broccoli sprouts from seeds. Just learn how to sprout them. And in my book, I also describe how to do the sprouting. It really takes 5 days to get it done. And, and it's super easy. And
by the way, beautiful book for everybody listening. Like this book, Cooking for Hormone Balance, like absolutely gorgeous book. Like you did an amazing job.
Thank you.
So good. All right, so we got flax going in the smoothie. We got broccoli sprouts. What else? What's another cool thing? And that's amazing for breast health. I know we got a couple other things I want to make sure we address too that are big concerns in my community.
Yeah. So did you say you still want to talk about breast health? I do have one more.
Well, no, I think we got breast health. I'm like, I know ones that I'm hoping you've got some solutions for, things like hot flashes.
Oh, yeah.
Any of the, there's nothing like a hot flash. Like, I remember going to sleep with my husband getting tossed across the bed because he's like, well, you're like on fire. I'm like, that's not good, by the way. That's not when you want to be on fire.
It's that moment when you are in a meeting, right? Or you are in a shop and the whole world stops because it's all about your hot flash, right? And you're trying to hide it. It's so embarrassing. It's so uncomfortable. It feels so self-conscious, right? Well, here's the great news about this, and that is hot flashes actually can be completely reversed and very well managed. Hot flashes as well as night sweats, right? And for that, I want to give you an example of one of our community members. Her name is Janice. And Janice, I remember, reported, she said, I've noticed that every time I have breakfast at 8 o'clock and then I go to work, and she worked as a nurse, I'm on my feet all day long, right? And 11 o'clock, it hits me. Like I get this biggest hot flash and I have to go to the bathroom and just wait through it because I'm too embarrassed. I just cannot work and focus when it happens. And so what she discovered is that she said, but then I realized if 15 minutes before 11 a.m., if I have a bunch of nuts, right, which is all full of protein and fats, my hot flash just doesn't happen. And I said, well, that's wonderful. Well, that's a solution too, but let's also talk about
that's life-changing.
And it also opens up an opportunity to ask another question. What exactly do you eat for breakfast? And her breakfast was, one of those typical American breakfasts, which is she was doing a toast with some jam. Then she switched to oatmeal with a lot of dried fruit, right? And maple syrup on top. So if you really think about it, there's in my books, it's definitely way too much carbohydrates and way too much processed sugar and even fructose from the fruit itself. Way too much sugar. And I know, JJ, you are big on this, sugar. So one of the things that we had done with Janice is that we've changed her breakfast. And one of the things that you will see in my cookbook, I hardly use any breakfasts that have a significant amount of sugar. There are a couple of sweet ones. There's a lot of other savory breakfasts. And so, this is what we did with Janice. We basically changed her breakfasts, and what I call a PFF kind of breakfast, stands for protein, fat, and fiber kind of breakfast.
I'm with you. You just said my three magic words.
There we go. Yep, you and I on the same page. Yes.
Changes everything. No, I mean, the worst thing you can do is big carb, like a low protein, low fat carb hit in the morning, just to really set you off.
Right, or having, or having an orange juice, right, and a croissant. I mean, that just sets you up for 12.
You know how I feel about juice.
So what I will say, and this is for Janice, is that, sugar balance when it comes to hot flashes and night sweats is the first thing that you can do. And so many women have an incredible improvement right away. So starting off with breakfast is a really great starting point. And I know I just love the work you're doing on sugar, because that is it's just life-changing. And not only is the hot flashes, but as the energy levels change. And as one of our community members said, we have I have a thriving online community, and a lot of sharings, a lot of communal support, and a lot of ranting and venting. It's the right place to do that. And one of the women came on and she said, in order to change my nights, I had to change my breakfasts. And who would have thought, right? Just
good tweetable,
powerful stuff, right? She just changed the breakfast, and then guess what? She stopped, insomnia stopped, and she was able to sleep through the night, having no night sweats whatsoever. This is a woman who was in her, mid-50s, right? Amazing.
Yeah. So that's incredible. Now, since you brought the age card up there, what about another one that I get asked all the time? And I will tell you honestly, I've been like, I got nothing. It is that moment when you're doing a downward dog and you look at your skin and go, who's that? And it's like, no. Are you a magic worker? Do you have anything there?
Yeah.
Because you told me your age the other day and I about fell over. So clearly something's working.
Yeah. So, sagging skin happens when our estrogen levels start diminishing, right? Going down. But also low testosterone can also be causing both sagging skin as well as muscle loss, right? And so, there's a couple of natural things that we can do straight away to fix that. So, the first thing, I would go back to that flaxseed. Flaxseed has the highest level of estrogen in it. So bring that on. And I'm talking here about 2 tablespoons a day. Add it to your smoothies. You can sprinkle that on top of a salad, top of a soup. Do not cook it. We do not want to be killing the omega-3s by cooking it. So there you have it. So flaxseed will be the first one. The second solution I have for your audience when it comes to that sagging skin muscle loss issue is to work with to bring up your progesterone levels naturally. And for that, JJ, I know we have a gift for your listeners that will teach them on something really fascinating, but really simple. It's called the seed rotation method. So you're basically using the idea behind it. I'm just going to give you the idea. You guys can learn the exact method from JJ's gift. The seed rotation basically uses a different kind of seeds to bring up, for 2 weeks, to bring up your estrogen levels. And then after 2 weeks, you switch for another 2 weeks to boosting your progesterone levels, but just by using seeds such as sunflower and sesame seeds to boost your progesterone levels. Why? Because they're high in zinc and vitamin E, which are the precursors for your corpus luteum to be producing progesterone. So having the progesterone estrogen balance helps tremendously with skin conditions, with better quality sleep, with just feeling much calmer, not having any mood swings. So huge benefits of using the seed rotation method. I'll be honest with you, when I learned about it from a naturopath many years ago, and she told me about it, and she said, try it with your clients. And I was like, what? Simple seeds like that? Seriously? And she said,
Yeah, I'd never heard of it. I mean, I feel like where the heck have I been, honestly? Like when you said it, I was like, how did I not hear about it? And the cool thing is this is simple, easy things to get. Doesn't cost much, and you're getting it free, everybody. Oh, and you're going to get it at. We're sitting here teasing everybody. I'm not telling them where they're getting it. So in the show notes, jjvirgin.com/hormone balance. All our cool stuff, and you will get the link to the seed rotation guide, which it's like, this is so good. And I know this is just a little highlight of what all is in your book that I was lucky enough to get an early copy of. So that is one everyone's going to want to get as well. Because again, these are like easy, yummy recipes that are game changers. And that's what's so exciting about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for saying that. And so let me ask you this: is your audience suffering from things like that stubborn belly fat that starts happening after schooling?
Oh no, they have got no issues at all with that. Never complaining about that at all. Just, I don't know, once a day. Yeah, that's every time I do Instagram or Facebook Live, that one comes up. I mean, what is it? My mother used to call it. And I'm like, I'm not becoming my mother. I'm not becoming my mother. She used to call it shifting sands, where like all of a sudden you have no butt and it all went to your stomach. And I'm like, I'm not succumbing to shifting sands. Forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's an interesting thing. So belly fat is a lot of times connected to, remember how I was talking earlier about that estrogen dominance is causing the fat to be deposited around the hips and the thighs, right? So when it comes to belly fat, is the sugar and insulin resistance and just generally high blood sugar levels that are causing belly fat to be, the storage, the preferred storage facility, if you will, for that hormonal imbalance. And so the first thing I would say, for your audience is really to follow JJ's recommendations on all the sugar balance stuff, because that stuff is really solid. Like doing it at 100%, not trying, not dabbling, just like committing and getting off sugar and really doing it.
Yes, it's not a hobby.
Yeah, full time.
It's not a hobby.
You want to get that belly off. The second thing that I see with belly fat with women, and I think that has a lot to do with just bringing the overall inflammation down, and that is reducing food sensitivities. So I know that's your other message, right, about your 7 foods. And so I actually work with not all exactly the same 7s, but very similar ones. And so, it's exactly the same thing. I cannot tell you how many women have told us, on our boards that every time they get off a food sensitivity they've just discovered, and the big ones, I mean, the glutens, the dairies, right, the corn, the soys, and the belly just immediately starts going down. The third one I have for you when it comes to belly fat is our liver health, right? And, the older we get, the harder the liver would have been working by then. And what you want to really do is support your liver in as much as you can. And yes, sure, there's a lot of different detoxes that people do and to support the liver, yada, yada. But then, I think the best way to really support your body is to commit to doing something on a regular basis, developing a routine. And though every time you look at your plate, you look at it and go, that is like a medicinal bowl. That's like a bowl of supplements I'm taking right here in front of me. Every one of these ingredients has a reason why it's on my plate. And that's really how I structured my cookbook, JJ. It's like every food item has a story, has a reason to be there on your plate. And when it comes to liver function, just to resolve that belly fat, which is not just going to help the belly fat, but a lot of other things, including mental clarity, your energy levels, your quality of sleep, the quality of skin. I mean, all your hormones actually are metabolized in the liver as well. So your body's just going to be so thankful. Can I give you a couple of foods that I love for liver support?
Super, super quick. And then we're wrapping up. We're already like 7 minutes over, but there's so much gold here. And I want to remind everybody, because I know people are probably like, I'm driving, I can't write this. Don't worry. Really amazing show notes from today's show you're going to be getting at jjvirgin.com/hormone balance. So yes, hit us with a couple liver loving
Super
foods.
simple. The first one, bring on the cruciferous vegetables. And what I mean by those is the brassica family of veggies, which are arugula, broccoli, of course, the broccoli sprouts we talked about, kale, collard greens, bok choy. Did I mention cauliflower? Those are the ones you're talking about. Bringing in 4 to 5 cups a day, in your diet. Oh my God, your body's gonna love it. It contains a substance called d-alpha-methane, also known as DIM, which helps us with detoxification pathways in the liver, including estrogen. So a really wonderful addition. The second one is a little bit more rare, but also I think it's fascinating. It easily can be purchased in many health stores and online. And that's dandelion roots or dandelion leaves. Not very common in our culture, but you know what? Using roasted dandelion root and making a coffee out of that or a latte, which doesn't have any caffeine in it, is an absolute golden food for the liver. And I've got a couple of recipes actually using dandelion roots in my cookbook.
Very cool. All right. So big takeaways here. Get this cookbook. Eating deliciously that gets your hormones balanced is way easier than you think. It doesn't involve like going off to some like crazy land and finding weird medicinal foods you never heard of. This is stuff you can get in the grocery store. So that's really cool. There's a couple simple ones you can add in to your morning smoothies that make a big difference, which I love. So again, go to the show notes, jjvirgin.com/hormone balance. We will have all of that info there. And Magdalena, thank you so, so much for joining us today. Just amazing stuff. Obviously, you will have to come back. I think we're going to do a really cool Facebook Live cooking show with you, which I'm really excited about.
Let's bring some of those foods to life and so people can really see.
Absolutely. Like I'm going to have some fun with broccoli sprouts. That's what I want to do. So thank you again for joining me. Now, after the break, I'll be answering a listener's questions. So stay with me.
When you make a small change to something you do every day, the impact over time can be huge. And when it comes to breakfast, you don't want to blow it because your breakfast sets the pace for your entire day. That's why JJ created the all-in-one plant-based breakfast shake to start your day right. Whether you are vegan, vegetarian, or just looking to consume more plant-based foods, this breakfast shake is for you. It comes in 3 delicious flavors, vanilla, chocolate, and chai, and helps give you sustained energy, cuts cravings, and can melt pounds from your waistline. Visit jjvirgin.com/products to shift your fat loss and energy into high gear today.
Welcome back. This is the time where I answer a listener's question. And today's question comes from Fran in Ocean Park. And she says, okay, JJ, you've convinced me I'm going to start cooking, but I'm short on time. So I need some easy shortcuts to be able to do this well. All right. So I don't know about you, but the last thing I need to do is spend more time in the kitchen. I am totally busy too, so I completely get that. So I've figured out how to do healthy meals literally in minutes, and it all comes down to being prepared. So what I've done is I actually got an extra freezer, and my extra freezer is stocked with great clean protein from my buddies over at ButcherBox. We'll be sure to put the info for ButcherBox and Vital Choice in the show notes. So I have all of that stocked in there. So I've got pastured chicken and pastured pork. I've got grass-fed beef. I get amazing lamb from my buddy Jeff Moore. And then I have salmon and scallops and crab claws and halibut. So I have my freezer stocked. I also stock it with bone broth from my buddy Chef Lance. So that's all done. Then I make sure that I have the things I need in my pantry. So that would be lentil noodles, garbanzo beans. Sorry, Dave Asprey. Dave and I have a running joke about garbanzo beans, and wild rice and some different kinds of soup. So I have a bunch of stuff in my pantry. So I'm well stocked in there too. At some point I'll do a pantry tour so you can see what I got in there. Then, and lots of coconut milk is stashed in my pantry as well. And then in my fridge every week, I get fresh vegetables. So I'll get zucchini noodles, I'll get romaine lettuce, spinach, carrots, cherry tomatoes. Usually I'll get some butternut squash and some butternut squash noodles, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. I'm in love with cauliflower rice. I have that in the freezer as well from Trader Joe's, cauliflower rice and fire roasted vegetables. In the pantry, I also have chunky tomatoes. So I have all of this stuff stashed. Oh, ghee, eat good fat ghee. And we'll put a link to my Amazon influencer page with all this good stuff in there too. So I have great stuff stocked in there from ButcherBox, Thrive Market, Vital Choice. And so I'm well stocked. And of course, I have really good oils and really good spices. I was like, what are those things called in the bottle that you shake? Spices. So that it's really easy for me to go to the freezer, pull out the protein we're going to have for dinner, then figure out which type of a low, slow carb I'm going to have. Is it going to be maybe some lentil noodles? Is it going to be wild rice? Is it going to be butternut squash? Grab those things out, maybe some sweet potato, and then always grab out a vegetable. So broccoli, cauliflower rice, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, something simple. And that is literally what I do. So I might steam up some wild rice in some bone broth, add some ghee, saute up some wild salmon, and then do some broccoli with a little grass-fed butter, and I'm done. And literally, that takes 15 minutes. So here's where you really win. You've got to have a great shopping list of your staples, and you just make sure that you keep your staples in your freezer and your pantry well stocked, and that you get the groceries, and you can order these off Instacart or Amazon Fresh, but you get your vegetables in every week, and you have a couple things stashed in the freezer like cauliflower rice and the onions and peppers, and you're totally dialed and set, and you can literally make dinner in 15 minutes or less. And now you've heard from Magdalena, and I'm going to say, get her cookbook so that you can also just learn how to throw a couple different things in there. Like she talked about doing the seed rotation. I was like, I have never heard this before, but I could totally do that with my smoothies in the morning. So it's super simple to do. You actually end up saving time because when you look at what it really takes to say, go out to eat, first of all, it's going to cost a lot more. You can't really count on getting what you want. You don't really know what they put in there. And it took time to go to the restaurant. So this is the easiest way that I know to do this. And then you can always win even bigger by making extra protein that night and throwing it on your salad the next day. Double win. And I always love those 2-for-1s. So that's the simple thing. Thanks so much for asking that one. Now, if you'd like to submit a question, head on over to my Facebook page at JJ Virgin Official or at Instagram at jj.virgin. We scour those to grab questions so I can answer them on the podcast. The other thing that we scour to bring onto the podcast are our reviews from iTunes. And I super appreciate these. First of all, because I know when people are trying to decide which podcast they should listen to, that reviews mean a ton. They really, really matter. So love that. And plus, it means a ton to me and the team. We read these and we really appreciate you doing that. So I'm going to feature today, Love My JJ 5 stars from Pukey's mom, who says, thank goodness the wait for a JJ Virgin podcast is over. So I super appreciate if you feel so inclined to jump on over to iTunes, leave a review, means a ton. While you're there, subscribe and share it with your pals because good friends help other friends get healthy with them. All righty. I'll see you next week. Bye.
That's all for this episode of the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show, which marks another step towards a healthier body and mind. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and we'll talk to you next week.